In this lesson, I'll talk about horizontal and vertical lines. I'll discuss the slope and the equations of each type of these lines, as well as how to graph a line given the equation. So let's first take a look at horizontal lines. If you notice, I have a horizontal line graphed over here. It always runs just straight left to right. There's no going uphill or downhill, just straight across here. So whenever we're looking at a horizontal line, the slope is always going to be 0. Now, if you're familiar with slope, we use the lowercase m to represent slope. If you're not yet familiar with slope, go ahead and check out my video on slopes of lines, and I'll go over the 4 types of slopes that exist. So here, we're going to just say our slope, which is m, is equal to 0. Now for the equation, it's a little unique. I'm going to go ahead and just put some points on this line. And I'm going to write out the ordered pairs for each of these points. Now, if you recall, the ordered pair of any point shows an x-coordinate and then a y-coordinate. So we always start from the origin. So for this left point, I'm actually going to count over 7 to the left and up 3, even though I don't have them all numbered here. Each block is just counting as 1 unit. So I'm actually going to count 7 to the left, which means a -7, up 3. For the next point, I'm counting 3 to the left, so I'm going over to -3 and then up to +3, so it's a -3, 3. The next point after that, I'm going 2 to the right and up 3, so it becomes +2, 3. And then my last point that I have plotted here, I'm counting 5 to the right and then up 3, so this is the ordered pair 5, 3. So now I want you to take a look at all these points and see if you notice anything. If you're looking at all the y values, notice that they are all the same, and that's a big connection with the equation of a horizontal line. All the y values are 3, so we just say y equals 3 for this particular example. For any equation of a horizontal line, I'm actually going to put a point right here on what we call the y-intercept. This is the y value of where the line crosses the y-axis. So this is called the y-intercept. Now to write any equation of a horizontal line, it is going to be y equals b, and we call b the y-intercept. So y equals b, where b is the y-intercept. All right, so we went over the equation of any horizontal line is going to be y equals some number b, where that b is the y-intercept. So again, notice all of these points here, because they have the same y value, forces them to line up horizontally. And any horizontal line will have a slope of 0. So let's take a look now to practice graphing some horizontal lines. If you notice, all 4 of these examples, 4 of these equations, start off with y equals, and it just equals some number. And again, that number is the y-intercept. So I'm going to start with this first one of y equals -2. I'm going to go on the y-axis, because that's where our y-intercept are going to be. I'm going to go down to -2, and I'm going to plot a point. That's where our horizontal line is going to pass through. So that's what I'm going to draw next. So here we have a horizontal line passing through -2 on the y-axis. I'm going to go ahead and just call that example 1. Let's take a look at our second example. Here we have y equals 5. So I'm going to go ahead and plot a point on 5 on the y-axis. And we're going to have a horizontal line going through 5. So there's my horizontal line going through 5 on the y-axis. That's example 2. I want you to take a moment, and if you're following along by graphing, go ahead and graph the next 2 examples, y equals 1 and y equals 0, and pause the video, and then hit continue to play when you're ready. So in order to graph y equals 1, I'm going to go to +1 on the y-axis, and again, just draw a horizontal line going through that. And then there's our graph for y equals 1. Call that example 3. And then our last example is at y equals 0. So when y is 0, we're actually on the x-axis. So we're actually going to have a line that goes through, or that is our x-axis. And there's our fourth example. So here we have 4 horizontal lines. All of their slopes are 0. And we just show that we're graphing them, that they pass through these particular numbers, which are the y-intercepts. So all of these horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Next, let's take a look at vertical lines. So if you notice here, I have a vertical line that is graphed. Notice it's just runs straight up and down. Again, there's no slant to it. That would mean it would have a positive or a negative slope. It's not a horizontal line because those have slopes of 0. So we actually describe this not with a number but with a word. Here our slope, m, isn't a number. It is undefined. Another way I like to look at this or describe to students is you can stand on a slope that's going downhill or uphill, or you could stand on a line that's horizontal. But here for a vertical line, there's no place that we would stand. There's no defined or definite place we would stand. So here we would say the slope is undefined. In some textbooks, you might see the phrase no slope. Sometimes that can get confusing with a slope of 0. So I tend to stay away from it, but it goes along with a vertical line. So a slope that's undefined means that the line has no slope. There's no number associated with it. Likewise, let's kind of come up with the equation the same way we did for the horizontal line. If you notice here, I have 4 points plotted. Let's write out the ordered pairs for each one. So I'm going to go with this highest point that's right here. I'm going to go 3 to the left, so I'm going to be at -3 and up 5. The next one down, I'm going 3 to the left, so -3 and up 2. For the third point, the next one right below that, I'm going to go 3 to the left and down 1. So this is going to be a -3, -1. And then my lowest point I have plotted on here is going to be at a -3 and a -3. Now with a horizontal line, if you remember, we had all of the y values that were the same. So take a look here and see what's the same. If you notice here, all of the first numbers, the x coordinates, are all the same. So for this particular example, our equation is x. Since all of the x's are the same number, they're all -3. So that's for this example. For any vertical line, let me plot this here. I call that the x-intercept. I'm going to go ahead and abbreviate that, just intercept as int. So the equation of any vertical line is going to be x equals a, where a is the x-intercept. All right, so here we went over that the slope of any vertical line is described as being undefined. The equation is going to be x equals some number where that number is the x-intercept. So let's take a look at 3 examples here of graphing. Again, if you want to go ahead and try these on your own, go ahead and pause the video and then hit play to continue. But we'll first take a look at x equals -3. So that means I'm going to go to the x-axis. Again, notice I have the axes labeled x and y. So sometimes it's easy to just work too fast and plot the number on the wrong axis, but make sure here we're at x equals -3. So we're looking right here. And we're going to draw a vertical line going through that number. So there's our vertical line. All the x values here are going to be -3, much like the example that we just had on the last page. So I'll call that example 1. Example 2 here, we have x equals 5. So I'm going to go over to 5 on the x-axis. Again, I'm going to have a vertical line going through that. All of our x values would be at 5. The y values are all going to be different, but all the x values will be 5. Again, each of the slopes here are going to be undefined. So I'll call that example 2. And the last example, x equals 0. This case, we're actually going to be right on the y-axis with our line, so we'll draw a vertical line going through that. And we'll call that example 3. Okay. So given the equations here, we're able to graph the lines based off of our knowledge now that anytime we see x equals a number, that's going to graph a vertical line because it's telling us all the x values are whatever number that they're showing us here. So for my last set of examples, I'm now going to give you the lines of each of these types, either horizontal or vertical, and we're going to write out the equations. Notice the directions say write an equation for each line, graph below. So again, if you want to try these on your own before I give away the answers, go ahead and pause the video and then hit continue to see these answers. So for number 1, we have a horizontal line. So anytime we're dealing with a horizontal line, it's going to be y equals. And then we just see what are all of our y values at, or more particularly here, what is the y-intercept? Well, that's at a positive 1. So no matter where we're at on that line, our y values are all going to be a 1. For example 2, we have a vertical line. So a vertical line here is going to start off with x equals because all of our x values are going to be the same. If you notice, our x-intercept here is -6. So no matter where we're at on this line, all of our x values will be -6. For our third example, we have another vertical line. So again, our equation is going to be x equals. Our x-intercept is at 3. All of our x values will be at 3. And our last example is a horizontal line, so that's going to be a y equals, and our y-intercept, well, if I'm just numbering up to 6 here, we've got 7, then 8, so all of our y values here are going to be at 8. Now, I also want to go back and just talk about the slopes of each of these. So again, if you want to pause the video and then just say it to yourself or write it out, what you think the slopes of each of these 4 lines will be, go ahead and write that down and hit continue to see the answers. So for this first line, number 1, that's down here is a horizontal line, our slope will be 0. For numbers 2 and 3, those are both vertical lines, so the slope is undefined. And we could abbreviate undefined as UND. And then for example 4, we have a horizontal line again, so that our slope would be 0. Now, I will discuss more with horizontal and vertical lines in another video lesson that I will have posted with parallel and perpendicular lines, because if you notice, one horizontal line is going to be parallel to another horizontal line, but a vertical line and a horizontal line, they're going to be perpendicular. So more to come on that topic, so look for that video. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at help@thealgebratutor.com. Thanks for watching. Bye.